But yeah, Pierre Dorion and the Ottawa Senators go out and land Jacob Chychrun from the Arizona Coyotes after an 18-month saga. Thank God it's over. Can't tell you how tired I was of hearing about that. Well, maybe this week, and there's traction, and there's just stop. The Arizona Coyotes, who are a National Hockey League franchise, in technicality only, finally get this done. After going to a player in October of 2021 and saying, yeah, I think we're going to trade you. And then doing nothing until March 2023. Great job. Really good job. Sens fans are excited. They should be. I think there's two different ways to look at this, and I think we'll do them separately. There's the actual deal in a vacuum. What did the Senators give up, and what are they getting in return? And then, how does this fit with the Senators? What is the match here? Is this the right target that they have hunted down, and what do you do now? So let's start with the first part, because I like the first part. Senators give up a first-round pick that is top 5 protected this year. So should the Senators miss the playoffs and actually fall back a few spots and happen to win the lottery and end up with a draft pick in the top 5, they'll keep it. First-round pick would slide to next year, and everything else would proceed as per usual. A second-round pick next year and a second-round pick in 2026. There is also a condition on the second-round pick in 2024, and this, I'm sitting by myself reading the trade, and I can't tell you how loud I guffawed at this condition. The 2024 second-round pick would become a first-round pick if in 2023, the Ottawa Senators reach the Eastern Conference Final. God, come on! Not happening. Not happening. I still don't think they're making the playoffs. They have absolutely made it interesting after, 2 big wins over Detroit. They're very hot over the last month or so. But it's not just the fact that they're still 5 points out. It is the number of teams that are still in this and that you would have to jump over. Jacob Chychrun helps, but I don't think they're making the playoffs, let alone then beating either Boston or Carolina in the first round, then beating either New York, New Jersey, Toronto, or Tampa in the second round to turn that second-round pick into a first-round pick. So this is good value, in my opinion. We had heard for 18 months now that the price was 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks and a really top-end prospect. And nobody was biting. A couple different times we'd heard it was close. I think, when we first saw Jacob Chychrun, who has been scratched for 3 weeks, by the way, he flew overnight to New York, where the Senators are going to play on Thursday. He wants to play. The team, as I sit here and record on Thursday morning, is doing their morning skate. He's not participating. He's sleeping because he's just gotten off a red eye. He's going to want to play. But he hasn't played in 3 weeks. Since Arizona scratched him because we all thought a trade was close. It turned out not to be. It was believed that was the Kings. Something fell apart. Didn't happen. Edmonton was in on him. Boston was in on him. Maybe 1 or 2 other teams. And all of them at some point went, fuck off, and walked away to go do something else. So at some point here over the last few days, the price dropped. And the Senators had stayed in touch all along. Everybody has known they're looking for a top 4 defenseman, and Jake Chychrun is that. He is a very good defenseman. So they'd stayed in touch, and finally, I guess the price moved enough that Pierre came back and said, I got a first and 2 seconds for you. Do you want it or not? And Arizona had sort of backed themselves into a corner a little bit, in my opinion. You've told this guy 18 months ago, we're going to trade you. You've made him wait this long. Then you've scratched him for 3 weeks so that he doesn't get hurt and ruin any potential trade. They had to deal him before the deadline. Like, what happens otherwise? On Saturday, you turn around like, sorry about that. Sorry we scratched you for 3 weeks. Get your shit. You're in the lineup tonight. Fuck that. It was not going to work for him to stay there. So they were going to have to do something by Friday. And by all accounts, they looked at Pierre Dorion and the Ottawa Senators' offer and said, okay, that sounds good. A part of that is, by most reports, what is the most valuable first-round pick that people were offering? Which means, who's the worst team still offering us a first-round pick? LA, Boston, all these other teams we talked about who were in, their first-round picks, who have now been traded anyway, right? They have dealt those first-round picks away in other deals when they got sick of trying to make this happen with Arizona. But those would have been very late in the first round. Ottawa, at this point, is still not even in the playoffs. So you're looking at like a, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th overall pick, potentially. We'll see where the season finishes and then what happens around the lottery. But it was a more valuable first-round pick than some of the other ones that they were being offered. Now, Ottawa's on the upswing, but this is a first-round pick this year. So how Ottawa finishes this year is important to Arizona. No doubt, Ottawa looked at this and said, this is a guy who could help us finish that push. We've been hot for the last month. We're as good as anybody over the last month. Let's see if we can finish this miracle run and squeak in before getting just smashed by the Bruins. So that worked in Ottawa's favor. Frankly, that their first-round pick was higher than the other first-round picks that were being offered to Arizona. But Pierre doesn't give up Sogard. He doesn't give up Ridley Gregg. He doesn't give up Tyler Clevin. These prospects that the Senators have that they don't want to give up, they didn't. And they didn't give up 2 first-round picks or 3 first-round picks. Well, they might have given up 2 first-round picks. Let's not forget, if Ottawa gets to the Eastern Conference Final this year, so it's a first and 2 seconds. As a strictly hockey trade, looking at the asset, looking at the player, looking at what Ottawa gave up, really like this for Ottawa. Great get. Very talented defenseman. Can play on your top pair. Certainly can play on your second pair. Going to round out that top 4 very nicely. And you didn't give up a ton to get him. Now let's look at the second part of this, though. Was this the right target? If this was your target, like I said, it was the right price. You got a great deal on this guy. But was this the right target? He is a left-handed defenseman with a little bit, but not much, experience playing on his right side if someone had to move over. You already have Jake Sanderson playing on the left side. You've got Thomas Chabot playing on the left side. And you have Jacob Chychrun playing on the left side. Now, one of those guys, if you want all 3 of those guys to be in your top 4, which you almost certainly do, one of those guys has to move to the right. I suppose you could run out 3 pairs and have one of those guys on the ice at all times. But it's going to be really hard to maximize the value there. Get everybody enough minutes, get everybody enough power play or penalty kill time, these sorts of things. But in theory, you could leave them all on the left side, move Brandstrom over to the right side, and then you'd have, I guess, Zub and Hamonic. I can't imagine that's what they're going to do. Somebody's got to move. It's not going to be Thomas Chabot. He is the weakest of those 3 defensively, and he seems to be the least experienced at doing it. Jake Sanderson has done it, but never at the pro level. It's always been in college. And you could do it. You could do it. You could move him over there. But he is the rookie. He is the youngest. He is the least experienced. Is that what you want to put on his plate right now? He's having a great rookie season. You might be happier to just let him stay where he is, not have that extra wrinkle thrown into his game. So it's probably got to be Jacob Chychrun. And I know I mentioned Brandstrom there a few minutes ago. I know you're probably saying, well, he's a lefty as well. Yeah, he's played more right than any of these 3 guys. And he has said repeatedly, I'm totally fine to do it. He said, actually, I think when he got here, he preferred it. DJ Smith did not prefer it, so he's been over on the left. But you could move him and leave your 3 studs up the left side and not worry about it. But I think it's going to be Jacob Chychrun that moves. And people have talked about, well, he's played over on the right a little bit, and he has. But it should be noted that this season down in Arizona, the top pair that they had was Shane Gostisbehere with Jake Chychrun, both lefties, and it was Gostisbehere who moved to the right side. So he's already been in a situation where one of the two lefties was going to have to move, and it wasn't him. I don't know what you want to read into that. Arizona's a terrible team. It's not a good organization. You know, maybe they've made a poor choice in your decision in terms of which one should have been flipped. Maybe it was just a flip of the coin. Who knows? But he just came from a spot where there was two lefties on his pairing, and he wasn't the guy that moved to the right side. So read into that what you will. But I assume here in Ottawa, he will be the guy who moves just out of process of elimination. Chabot can't do it, and I don't want to do it to Sanderson because he's a rookie. Now, maybe next year in training camp, you know, like I said, if Chychrun plays tonight, he won't have so much have had a morning skate with these guys. Like I said, he's sleeping. Forget a practice or time to get acclimated. He's just going to get dropped in there and presumably on his offside. I don't know what DJ Smith's going to do. They're not talking. But that's my guess as how this plays out. And so you spent this first and 2 seconds. Let's not forget you spent your first last year on going and getting Alex DeBrincat. There's an opportunity cost here. If you were looking for this long-lost top 4 defenseman, I probably would have kept looking until I found one whose natural position was on the right side. Now, don't get upset with me. I already said as a trade, as a strictly what I gave up to acquire this piece, Ottawa did well. But I'm not convinced it's the right piece. Because I'm not convinced it's a guy who can play on the right side. At least not to the same level he plays on the left side. So it's 2 different questions, right? Did we win the trade? Yeah, I think you did. Was it the right trade? Less convinced. So like I said, there's an opportunity cost here. Because if you do find yourself having to still go out and try and find a right side defenseman, well, you've traded your first away to get this one that wasn't exactly what you needed. And you know what this reminds me of? And I know how much Ottawa fans love these comparisons and love when everything's about the Leafs, but let me make this about the Leafs. Kyle Dubas goes out. All we've been hearing for a long time is that the Leafs need another top 4 defenseman. They need someone who can play with Morgan Rielly. And Dubas goes out and gets a very good defenseman in Jake Muzzin. But he's another left side defenseman. And so you got Jake Gardiner pushed down a bit and someone's going to have to flip. Unless, you know, we'll just try both of them on the top pair and we'll see. Mike Babcock is immediately and publicly irritated. Well, he's not a right side guy. He doesn't know. Gives it a brief shot. I think Muzz played 1 game on the right side. I think Morgan Rielly played 3 or 4. Babcock says, fuck it, splits them up. And you're kind of back at square one where you don't really have anybody to play with Rielly on that top pair. So that's what I think of a little bit with this trade. It's a really good piece, and he absolutely makes the team better. But it wasn't exactly what you needed, and you spent a lot to get him, and now you don't still have that in your pocket to go spend on what you actually do need. So that's the opportunity cost that's still sitting here as well. Now, he'll be an upgrade on Travis Hamonic, there's no doubt. But is he as good as what you could have done? I'm not sure. We'll see. We're going to get a chance to look at it on Thursday night. I do think it's a nice piece of business for Ottawa in terms of being able to bring that guy in. It's probably not the move I'd have made. And I know there's a bit of that sentiment floating around on Sens Twitter right now. There's also a ton of excitement, as there should be. Fans are pumped up that, you know, you've gone out, brought in another legit piece who is under control for 2 more years after this one at about $4.6 million. A question I guess we're never really going to get the answer to, and we don't really need to now, is did Pierre Dorion have permission to spend? And off the top of your head, you're probably going, well, yeah, of course, he just did. Well, what are we, a week and a half removed from him trading Nikita Zaitsev to Chicago? with a second and a fourth-round pick, and that was expensive to get out from under that deal. And that was for future considerations. Essentially, to get nothing back, but just please take this contract. Zaitsev also makes about $4.5 million. So you clear him out, you pay a second and a fourth to get that off your books, then you go get Chychrun at 4.6. So that needs to be factored into the cost of this trade as well, which is the first and 2 seconds to get Chychrun, but also the second and the fourth to make room on your payroll for that. And not cap room, actual budget. This team is being prepared to be sold. And so there's been a lot of questions as to whether or not Pierre Dorion even has the permission or the ability to go out and add salary. So this was a clever little piece of work. Clear out Zaitsev's 4.5, bring in Chychrun's 4.5. You're certainly happier with one than the other, and you carry on. I'll give him credit for that. But that second and fourth that went into dealing away Zaitsev count against what was paid to get Jacob Chychrun, because they're connected. There's no doubt.